Hi everybody, welcome to the Painter's Notebook. I'm your host Dennis Bird. Today we're going to talk about toning your canvas and whether to tone or not to tone and some of the things you might run into it. This here is a white untoned canvas, right? It has an acrylic ground, a white acrylic ground on it. This is pretty traditional how you get it from directly from the art supply store. It is a panel, but it's the same that you'd have on a stretch canvas. Many artists prefer an acrylic ground. I tend to use an oil ground, so I have this one. It's already been toned. I like to pre-tone my canvas before going out to paint, just so I don't have to fight this, have this pull up. You don't have to. Many people will start with the white, the white canvas, and then they'll tone on site and allow that paint to kind of mix in. And I've done both, and I do both. It just depends on the situation. But this one, I've toned in the light yellow ochre and transparent red oxide. Now, why do we tone our canvas? Do I need to paint on a toned canvas? No, it's not required. Many impressionists painted on a white canvas. And there might be times that you would want the white of the canvas showing through. The downside of a white canvas is, and I can hold this up so you can see it again, it can be kind of blinding. So if I'm painting outside, it's reflecting the sunlight, it's blinding me, and I can't really see my darks and my lights because everything's going to seem so much darker next to this white canvas, right? So until I get this covered, I can't really judge my values. Whereas on a tone canvas like this, I already tone it to a middle value, and sometimes you don't have to do that. Even just a light tone will knock that intensity of the light so that you can see your values and your colors a little more clearly. So particularly for plein air, I find that very advantageous, and a lot of artists, myself included, we will pre-tone before going out in the field. You could use an acrylic base, a gray or a tone, then wash, just to kind of dirty the canvas up so you don't feel like you're working on that clean white surface, you're not getting that reflected light. I have a couple more examples. So these are our ones I'm working on in the studio. But I would do the same process for plein air, a light tone, and then I'd sketch over top with, in this case, it's transparent red oxide. My tone on this one is transparent red oxide and ultramarine blue. Kind of gives a sort of grayish, brownish tone. But this will allow me to see my color. So when I start working in color, I can determine proper value relationships. And here's another one I'm working on. Same color mix actually, but I'm using a little bit more blue on this one for my shadows. But it's going to allow me to see my lights and my darks and really focus on the shadow masses and those main areas of light and dark. And I tend to do this stage. So even if I'm plein air painting, I approach it a very similar fashion. I'll take the time to lay out my lights and darks in a monochromatic underpainting, if you will. Technically not underpainting, but that's the term we use a lot of times. But I'll lay out all this. I'll give it a minute to dry. I'm using a fast dry medium. I'm using Galkid light, so it dries relatively quickly. Not completely, but it'll dry enough that I can paint over this as long as I'm not scrubbing too much. So I will use these when I paint in the field. So hopefully you find that helpful. I know there's a lot of confusion about whether you should tone or not tone. I prefer it. Are there hard, fast rules? Absolutely not. But it does make things a little easier when you can separate your values out first and then go in and paint in color rather than trying to fight all that going on in a white canvas. So try and see. If you don't like it, you know what? That's okay. You're not tied to it, but I do recommend if you're struggling with keeping your paintings unified, try toning. Try toning your canvas and try working that way and see if they feel a little bit more unified. Because the other advantage that you do have with these is when I am painting color over top of this, it does help unify. In any little places that I happen to miss, you won't even notice them because this tone underneath will fill that space. Versus if I'm on a white canvas, it'll look little sparkles shining. So there's something else to keep in mind as well. It'll help unify those paintings. Thank you for joining me. I hope you found this informative and I hope you find it helpful. Please, leave a comment. Be sure to follow me on YouTube, follow my channel. Um, and you can also check out my work on Instagram at Isbyrd Art or on Facebook at Isbyrd Art as well. And be sure to check out my website, www.dennisbyrd.com. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.